Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to my channel. Thank you again for those who watched and liked my second video. Last time we started getting into the topic of an overview of Muslim mental health, the 6 warning signs of unhealthy mental health, and how we can start normalizing the conversation so that there isn't as much stigma around the topic. So this week what we're going to do is focus on the Islamic cure to 4 out of the 6 signs of unhealthy mental health. So again, just as a reminder, the 6 warning signs of unhealthy mental health is long-lasting sadness and irritability, mood swings, excessive worry, fear, and anxiety, social withdrawal, changes in sleeping and eating patterns, and trouble relating to and understanding situations and people. The 4 that we're going to focus on are long-lasting sadness and irritability, excessive fear, worry, and anxiety, social withdrawal, and changes in sleeping and eating patterns. So we can just get right into it. Just before we get into the topic, I just want to remind everyone I am not a scholar, I'm not a sheikh or an imam. I don't have an expertise in this topic. This is just basic reminders for us if we are feeling any of these warning signs, or if we know anyone or possibly might be feeling any of these warning signs in the future. Just basic Islamic cures we can do to help ourselves get rid of or remedy these unhealthy symptoms. So the first is long-lasting sadness and irritability. And one thing that's really important to know about this is that anytime we feel sad or irritable, it's oftentimes when times are hard. We're not going to feel sad or irritable when times are really good and we're happy and times are easy. It's always when times are hard. So one thing you can do in these times is to remember Allah. And that can be in any way that means to you. So it can be during salah, it can be with dua, it can be with fasting. Any way that you feel you can remember Allah by, you can practice it. Another thing is to remind yourself that Allah only tests us with things that we can handle, and He does this out of His mercy. He wants us to benefit in ways we cannot understand or comprehend. So this is really important because oftentimes when people are being tested, they will say things like, why me, why this? And one thing that's very important to constantly remind yourself is the fact that Allah knows us best, and Allah knows what we can and cannot handle, and He will not give us anything that we cannot handle. So oftentimes that makes us feel better because we know that Allah is there and is supporting us and knows that we are strong enough to handle it. Another thing to remember is that those who suffer most are closest to Allah. So if you feel like you are someone who is suffering a lot and that's causing you to have some sort of anxiety or sadness or even mood swings, remember that that is supposed to actually bring you closer to Allah, and that closeness will give you ease in your heart. Another thing to remember is that Allah may actually want good for you, and oftentimes our good deeds are not enough to get us into Jannah, or to get us into the level of Jannah that Allah wants us to get to. So these tests are actually His mercy of allowing us to pass them in the correct manner and therefore get to a higher place in Jannah, inshallah. A last remedy or cure for sadness and irritability is to help others. Oftentimes, when we help our Muslim brothers and sisters, it makes us feel better, not only because we're doing it for the sake of Allah, but we can oftentimes see the result and know that we did something for the sake of Allah to help someone who may be in a worse situation or is struggling at that time. The second warning sign of unhealthy mental health that we will be talking about is fear, worry, and anxiety. And this is not just, normal fear, worry, and anxiety, because of course that's a normal human feeling, and we all feel it probably on a daily or weekly basis. But this is excessive fear, worry, and anxiety, where you're constantly worrying, you constantly have anxiety to the point where it might debilitate you from doing normal everyday things. The first remedy would be to remember that this world is temporary and should not be your main concern. One of my favorite quotes is, "This is a testing place, not a resting place." So we should not be too involved in this world or what it has to offer, because the more we get attached to this world, the more disappointed and the more sadness we're going to get, because we are not going to be fulfilled. So remembering that world is temporary and that everything we do is for the sake of Allah will help that, because no matter what happens, you know that there is a higher place, a better place for you to get to. And no matter what is happening in this world, none of that is going to matter in the next life. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever is mainly concerned about the hereafter, Allah will make him feel independent of others and will make him focused and content, and his worldly affairs will fall into place. But whoever is mainly concerned with this world, Allah will make him feel in constant need of others and will make him distracted and unfocused, and he will get nothing of this world except what is decreed for him. So subhanallah, it's basically like, I think the moral is, once you stop worrying about this world, everything in this world will fall into place, which we often do the contrary. We're always worried about this world and wondering why nothing is working out in this world. And subhanallah, Allah is giving us the cure for that. He's telling us that if we stop worrying about this world, He will help us in this world and the next life. And of course, as always, a third cure would be prayer and dua. Anytime you pray, you feel your heart content. Anytime you make dua, you feel your heart content and you feel closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is always a very important cure to fear, worry, anxiety, or really anything negative that you may be feeling, or even positive. A third warning sign of unhealthy mental health is social withdrawal. And there are actually a lot of cures, Islamic cures for this, but some of the most common is to attend Jama'ah. Whether you're male or female, you should be going to the masjid, attending Jama'ah. Not only, of course, most importantly, to hear the khutbah and to be able to pray the hud with everyone, but also to feel that you are surrounded by people who are encouraging you in your faith. You are surrounded by your sisters or brothers who may be able to help you, even if not outright. They may be able to give you that sense of not feeling socially withdrawn. It's always very important to give your salams, and if you do feel like you're socially withdrawn, it may be even more important, so that you may be feeling that you are connecting with others. Asking how your brothers or sisters are doing, getting to talk with them, getting to communicate, and therefore feeling like you are surrounded by, again, people who will encourage you in your faith, encourage you to do better. Visiting others, whether they are sick, whether they have invited you, or whether it's just a small gathering, is always very important, as long as, again, you're being surrounded by people of faith and people who will encourage you in your deen. Making people feel loved, no matter how that means to you. Everyone has their own way of showing people love, and whatever that means to you, making people feel loved will automatically fill that void that you feel when you are feeling socially withdrawn. And of course, as always, prayer and dua, no matter what issue you're having, no matter what emptiness or loneliness or sadness you may be having, prayer and dua is always the number one answer, because Allah is always listening. A last warning sign of unhealthy mental health that we are going to talk about today is changing in sleeping and eating behaviors. This is one, again, that may happen no matter what level of anxiety, no matter what level of sadness. It may get worse as the sadness and anxiety progresses, but it's always good to realize and stop it as soon as you can. So for the changes in sleep, it's always good to follow the sunnah of sleep, such as reciting Quran and dua before you sleep, sleeping on your right side, reciting dhikr before you go to sleep, things like that. And also avoiding sin will also help, because oftentimes when we are sinning, that is what causes us to change our behavior in sleeping or eating, because of the guilt that we feel. So if there is something that you feel guilty about, or you feel that you are sinning and you need to change that right away. So again, I want to make sure I emphasize the fact that I am not a scholar, I'm not a sheikh, I'm not an imam. This is just everyday reminders and knowledge that we can take whenever we are feeling something like this. And also, there are so many cures that I have not talked about that if you want to share, please comment. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate all the support. Jazakallah khair, and we will see you next week, inshallah.